So how did you cope with the first 2 weeks, month into the pandemic? Were you part of the toilet paper crazy thing that everybody went on?
That's a good question. I am like quintessential person that like always has a backup of anything anyways. So we're pretty well stocked up, I gotta say, when it started happening. It's funny that like in those first couple weeks, I was comparing it almost to like when folks prep for a hurricane. That,
Yeah.
you know, you go into the grocery store and it is empty, it's like chaos outside. And I mean, I want to say it was like mid-March. I was like working. It was like a Tuesday or Wednesday, and then all of a sudden it was like the following day. That was when, all right, nobody could go anywhere. Um, so I wasn't too worried in terms of supplies, I will say, because I am like I don't know if that's just how I grew up, that it's like I always have a backup when it comes to
Hmm.
food, when it comes to supply. Like we had toilet paper, we had paper towels, we had um, a hand sanitizer was not one thing we had, but I don't think anyone imagined they would be buying like bucket loads of hand sanitizer. So um, it 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 didn't like I was nervous um, just based on like how it was going. I wasn't as nervous for me only because I knew that, you know, I was cooped up in my apartment and I
Safe.
think we're doing okay. Family was safe. And so it was more of the stress of like for everyone else.
What made you escape all of that? What was your like little? Everybody had one thing during the pandemic that was just like,
I did, and yeah. I did develop a little bit of a beer belly, I'm sure, after the 6 months. That certainly was one vice at the end of a lot of days. It was honestly TV though. I think it was just that like escapism, that like I can just immerse my mind into something else for 30 minutes, and not have to necessarily think about the world or Zoom or what is going to happen next or something, that like if I can just disconnect. Um, it's interesting that I feel like I have found myself less on social media over the pandemic, which I don't know if that's just the year or if it was because of the pandemic, but I wasn't interested as much in seeing all of you know, that it was tough to be able to disconnect because then everywhere you looked something was happening. And so I found myself at least checking my phone probably less, but watching the TV way more.
did you have any Zoom calls or like FaceTime calls with friends where you would have a drink or something? Is that something that works for you? Would that something be something you would think about doing when you're on Mars?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because that was actually early on in the pandemic. You know, I mean, it was like a month in and people were craving seeing each other. And so my girlfriend and I were doing little like Zoom things with Trivial Pursuit, that like
Okay.
trivia
Yeah.
board game. And so we were having like trivia nights and we would have wine and beers and drinks and just play trivia kind of over Zoom. It was a while before we had our friends, like our first friends, back in over to our apartment. I think it was like August was the first time that we actually invited someone back over in person. So for those first couple months, I remember she would do we would do with her parents. It was like with everyone we could think of. We were like, "Do you want to have a Zoom trivia party with us?"